All right. Well, I'll be cognizant of everyone's time that's already joined us, and I will continue to add people as they come in. So we'll go ahead and officially start our virtual Lunch and Learn. Just a quick background on how this event came to be. Um, Dr. Raines, you're going to have to help me on the alumni visit because I have temporarily forgotten her name.
Hall.
Yes. Um, and I was able to visit with her in Memphis, and she let me know that she was a good friend of yours, and I thought that you would make a great luncheon speaker or special event speaker. So we made contact with each other, and for everybody attending, we originally hoped this could be a luncheon and tie it into a bigger day on campus. And once the pandemic hit, we had to change some plans. But many of you, I think, might be a little grateful for that because you might not have been able to attend in person. So we're very excited to host Dr. Shirley Raines. She's a UT Martin alumna, and she is a past president of the University of Memphis for many years. And we are so proud of her. Dr. Carver, Chancellor Carver, is here, and he will be asking her some interview questions, and she will be answering those and talking about some of the projects she has started since her retirement. And then we will open it up, Dr. Raines, if you're okay with that, for any quick questions towards the end.
Of course, that's great.
All right. Well, Dr. Carver, I will hand it over to you.
Fantastic. Well, folks, this is a real honor. I've long admired the work of Shirley Raines. My first degree came from what was then Memphis State University. Met my wife there. Then became University of Memphis. And so when Dr. Raines was elected president there, obviously really followed her career there with great interest. And then several years later, as I worked at UT Martin, came to know her as a graduate. And we're just very proud of the work that Dr. Raines has done, but what she continues to do and how she still stays so active, especially in the areas of leadership and higher education. So, Dr. Raines, it's just an absolute pleasure to have you here today, even though it's virtual, and be able to really get some thoughts and insight from you about your experience at UT Martin, but then in the years since. So I'll just go ahead and get started and just ask you, really, when thinking about your time at UT Martin, did you experience anything in particular that sort of jump-started your career in higher education?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and to all of the people who are tuned in virtually. I wish I could see you in person, and maybe I'll come back for something in person. But yes, Keith, you can call me Shirley and I'll call you Keith. Okay,
Okay.
Is that a deal?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's how we know each other best. But yes, lots of things jump out at me, of course. I'm the first generation college student, and because of a scholarship to come to the University of Tennessee, then at Martin Branch at that point, I was able to come to college, and I talk about that in my leadership book, actually, some stories about that. So first, it's gratefulness to have a scholarship, and that jumps out at me first. That's the very first thing. And I started my career as a preschool teacher, but had it not been for Miss Norman, who was the leader of the Child Development Center there, I would have not had the chance to get that certificate and become a preschool teacher. So I had a long journey from preschool teacher to university president, but of course without the knowledge I gained there from Miss Norman. But I'm going to monopolize the conversation just for a minute, Keith, because I really want to tell this one story.
Please do.
Okay. One of my professors who saved my life as a college student was Miss Pauline Glover. Miss Glover taught creative writing, and I was good at creative writing. So she paid a lot of attention to me and gave me good feedback on what I was writing and so forth. But I had a professor who shall remain nameless, who was teaching a human physiology course, and he seemed determined to get me kicked out of class because I didn't do too well on in his course. And you know, when you're from a small town where you've always done well, and then you go to college and you meet that course that you just are struggling to get through, and I thought, college is not for me. I can't make it. So I left and went home. In fact, I stayed home almost 3 weeks. And of course, in these days, you would drop me out if I'd stayed home 3 weeks. But Miss Glover called me on the phone and said, "Shirley, where are you?" And I said, "I'm at home." And I told her this long story. And she said, "Now you live in Crockett County, don't you? Off of 412 going to Dyersburg?" And I said, "Well, yes." I said, "I live on a farm between Bells and Alamo." And she said, "Tell me how to get there." And I said, "Why do you want to know?" And she said, "I'm coming to get you." Had it not been for Miss Glover, now I said, "Don't do that, Miss Glover. I'll be back in Martin by Sunday night." So I had already gotten a job at Winter Garden Freezer Company, frozen foods. And I got my job and terminated my job within a week and got myself back to UT Martin. So I have this in my book. I told it to all of the faculty induction processes I had over the years that Pauline Glover at UT Martin saved my college career.
Wow. Wow. That's absolutely phenomenal. And it's amazing how we have these people that come into our lives and they're just doing their jobs, but because they have extraordinary care or empathy or sensitivity, well, we're glad Ms. Glover reached out to you and got you back. Well, think about maybe beyond, as you got beyond the entry point to college and think about the rest of the time. What's a favorite memory about campus that jumps into mind?
Well, of course, the dorms, the residence halls, we call them now, going over the tea room to have lunch, walking up to the Baptist Student Union to meet my friends. And then, of course, when I was a sophomore, I became a Zeta Tau Alpha. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I've been back there for some of their reunions and to speak to them. So, but that's all about people and friendships.
That's excellent. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the college residential experience, or the relationships. Well, you've been very successful in leading very large organizations, specifically the University of Memphis, and did so well there. And you talk about in your book, An Uncommon Journey, you discuss leadership extensively. If you could pick only 2 leadership themes or leadership lessons from the book, what 2 would you highlight?
Well, the very first one, of course, and thank you for asking, is say yes to leadership. Say yes to leadership. You're not going to make these leadership chances or have these leadership opportunities if you haven't said yes to leadership all along the way. So whether it is in your present job or in your present public service or your present civic organization, say yes. When people ask you to lead something, say yes, because that helps build the resume, but that's not the most important thing. It helps build your experiences. So number 1 is say yes to leadership. And then number 2 is, and I have many in the book, so it's hard for me to use just two, but one of them is make yourself indispensable. Make yourself indispensable. In any organizations, there's some jobs that have to be done regardless of a pandemic, regardless of a downturn in the tax revenue for the state or whatever. Whatever job you're doing, do it so well that you are indispensable. And when that happens, then people are going to call on you for leadership positions. And I came to the University of Memphis from the University of Kentucky, where I was appointed as Dean of the College of Education there. And 3 years later, they asked me to become Vice Chancellor for Academic Services. But I didn't want to leave the College of Education, yet I wanted to take being Vice Chancellor. And finally, I said, if you'll give me another assistant here and another vice chancellor over here, I'll do both jobs, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. Now, Keith, I'm telling you, only a woman would think of that alternative because it was the dumbest thing I ever did. Because they were both full-time jobs, obviously, but it opened the door. It opened the door for me to become president at the University of Memphis. So I became indispensable, I guess, or they at least just needed some dumb person to take on two jobs at once.
No, I think you just said yes to leadership. That's what I think. That's what I
didn't want to leave the other, but I wanted to take the new one.
No, that's fantastic. Great pieces of advice. Well, you've done a lot of lecturing all over the country, and one of the things that really caught my attention is your work with the new presidents and chancellor seminar at Harvard. And thinking about the lectures you've given, what advice, and this may or may not be for me, but no, it is for me. What advice would you give higher ed leaders right now in this uncertain time during a pandemic? What tip would you offer us?
Well, one, I would say, remember what your values are as an academic community and do everything you can to keep those values intact. And if you do that, you may be doing virtual or hybrid or some internships off campus or mentorship somewhere else, but keep your values intact, and then the decisions you have to make will just be the ones that are right for you and your university. But the piece of advice that got me the most feedback from the Harvard Institute, and I must say that a little cotton picking girl from Crockett County never thought she would be lecturing at Harvard, I can tell you. But the lesson or lecture that got me the most feedback was one very short piece of advice, and that's be bold. This is not the time to be timid. You've been given a great leadership opportunity. Go for it and be bold. And you're a bold person.
Well, thank you. You're giving me too much credit there. Too much credit. But in thinking about, you mentioned mentorships. How do you view these? And you mentioned a couple of important people in your life earlier. But do you have one mentor that really helped shape you as you started getting into higher education?
I don't have one. I have many. All at every appointment, when you're the new kid on the block, you find out how the most successful people are doing their jobs. You look at what they do and how they accomplish it, and you find out how you can learn from them, whether you call it a mentorship or just asking for advice. But every place I went, I tried to find the most successful people who had my kind of values and my way of leading. And if they had that, then I tried to learn from them. I didn't have just one. I had plenty of people that wanted to give me advice. I'm sure you do too. But I always had sort of a gauge, as I wanted to be like those people, because I knew they were getting things done and had the right values, and that I could either get advice from them or follow their lead.
How I know you've had to have been approached by many people to be a mentor for them. So talk a little bit about being a mentor for a younger group, which I think would be an awesome responsibility.
Yes, it is an awesome responsibility, and I accept that responsibility. What I do now is I speak and I write and I do what I call leadership development consultancies.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not, if it's for someone who can afford it, I ask them to pay me. If it's a big organization who needs help with their board chairman or whatever. But if it's a young person who needs mentorship, or I will do that, of course, for free, because I owe a lot to this field and to the guidance that I have received. So I willingly do that mentorship. It is an awesome responsibility, but it is a two-way street. There are people who just want you to mentor them so they know they're going to ask you for a good recommendation. And I'm not interested in those kind who are just needing a reference. So usually one of the first questions I ask them is, are you asking me for a mentorship where we will really meet and discuss things and work with you? Or are you just needing a reference? Because I'm happy to do references too. But if it's a mentorship, I really think it's a two-way street.
That's outstanding. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Well, you mentioned speaking and writing and doing consulting. Can you talk a little bit more in depth? I hate to call it post-retirement because it doesn't seem like you've retired, but tell us about some of the projects that you're working on.
Well, one of the projects that I am proudest of, frankly, is with the University of Tennessee. At the University of Tennessee Arboretum, I have written 2 books for children, one on birds and one on butterflies. And these 2 books, I've done things, I lecture on leadership. But I write books for children based on my volunteering in my daughter-in-law's first grade classroom. So I wrote these 2 books, and the Arboretum has a butterfly festival, so they asked me to come and speak. I did that, and then they called me and said, we'd really like to do a nature book trail and feature your butterfly book. So they've made replicas of the pages of my book, and they're like a billboard almost, and they are posted all across the hillside, and you hike this trail, and along the trail, the parents and the children or whomever is hiking stops and read the pages of the book, which has things for children and has notes for teachers, and the beautiful photography done by Kurt Hart. So the Nature Book Trail has been up and going, and it's been very popular. So it comes down sometime in October, and they decided they're going to do a second one on birds. Gosh. So I'm really excited about that because, life is so wonderful, and I've had so many great things happen to me, but it's wonderful when something happens that involves children, since that was my first area of study, was child development.
Absolutely. Well, that's outstanding. Well, Jackie, can I hit pause for a second? Is there a way to get information about how to purchase those books? I mean, I'd like to buy a couple myself. So
yes, we will actually. I mean, Dr. Raines, you can talk about this now too, but we will send out a link to her children's books and her leadership books in a follow-up email to this group.
Oh, great. Oh,
great. That's great. And of course, always you can get them on Amazon.
That's right. That'd be great. Thank you, Jackie. Shirley, you mentioned you're from the top county in Tennessee, Crockett County.
Yep.
But obviously, UT Martin attracts many students from rural West Tennessee and in rural areas. You grew up here, so can you talk about or make a comment on the importance of sort of the rural regional university and what it adds to the higher ed landscape?
Well, definitely. We know I would not have been a college graduate without UT, then Martin Branch, without UT Martin. So I would say how important it is. It's to give dreams to those people in rural West Tennessee and anywhere in Tennessee and Kentucky and all the places that you draw from. But it's to give opportunities. And some people will not go to the huge universities. They want to be in a smaller environment. And even though you're growing immensely, you still have that appeal where you can know lots of people on campus. You can run into your professors at lunch or in the library or wherever. And as soon as this is over, I think you'll be inundated with people wanting to come back to campus. So the smaller regional universities. The other part that's so important is the economic engine that you provide. All of the people you employ, I would say you have maybe 900 employees, I'm not sure.
That's exactly right.
So I did look you up again, Keith. So, but you have the economic engine. And then as those people graduate, they take their knowledge and they want to stay in the community and they bring it right back home and invest in that community and become the leaders of the community. So their businesses grow, and that's critical for all of us in Tennessee, and particularly in West Tennessee. And I still have, Crockett County is still home.
Well, we're proud of you. We're proud of you from Crockett County, from West Tennessee, and from UT Martin. You've done so well. Well, big question, and all of us are thinking about this during the pandemic. But talk to us about the importance as leaders, as a leader, to sort of be able to step back and recharge your batteries and do some personal renewal. What are some of the things that you do, Shirley, to make sure you have time to recharge your batteries as you go back in and to your still very busy work schedule?
Turn off the computer, turn off the cell phone, take walks in nature so that you have a chance to refresh. There are wonderful meditations, and all our churches are doing a great job at putting things online. But after you've had those services or meditations, turn off the phone, turn off the computer, take a walk in nature. I know you're a very accessible person, Keith. I know you from years ago, and I know your personality. And I was very accessible at the university too, and am very involved in the community here in Oak Ridge. But it's really important for us to have that quiet time to meditate, to pray, to be in nature, to be thankful for what we've been given, our health and our opportunities, our country, all those things. So in Memphis, I'll tell you, I had a very busy life there too, but I did yoga every morning, and I do not believe I would have lasted 12 years in Memphis, Tennessee without yoga every morning. So it was the time to be quiet, to center, to exercise my body. And so while I don't do yoga anymore, I do hike and walk and get in nature.
That is great. And obviously I did not know that about you. I did not. Yesterday we had yoga in the quad. We had
I saw that. And were you out there leading it?
Well, well, let's just say I was participating from the back, from the back. You've got to have that one example of don't do it this way, and that was my role. That was my role. But it was. I got home and I told Holly Ann how much better my neck felt and my hips felt. So I'm gonna pick that up. I'm gonna pick that up.
Excellent.
Something Jackie will offer every afternoon over at the Alumni Center, maybe. Jackie, she didn't look too excited, but
We can
Shirley,
offer it on the back patio.
there we go. That's right. Well, Shirley, would you mind taking a few questions from our
I'd be glad to.
alumni crew? So I would love to open it up. We've got some great leaders on here and some great friends of the university. And please just jump right in.
You all can either unmute your mic and ask, or if you want to enter in the chat box, I can also ask that for you all. Dr. Raines, while they're thinking, I hope we have a few questions, but while they're thinking, one of the questions I've had for you, and I've kind of saved it for this interview, is how did you make the transition from a preschool teacher to higher ed?
Well, I actually was a preschool teacher in Kentucky, and we moved to Oak Ridge, and I went to the University of Tennessee and worked on my master's degree in child development. And I got a job out of that as the Head Start director for Knox County Schools, which was 13 centers and I don't know how many teachers, 300 families. And other than being a university president, I learned the most from that job. Well, I have to say working on the farm was number one. But after an adult, I learned so much from that job because I worked with people from different races. And while I never went hungry on our farm, we always had enough to eat. I dealt with what real problems exist in our society, and I learned a tremendous amount. And then I went back and I got some grants for working with children through East Tennessee Children's Hospital, and I became, I trained some people to become teacher assistants, and I figured out I really liked working with the teachers too. So I went back and worked on my doctorate in education. Okay. A funny story, and I don't know if we have time for it. So you cut me off, Jessica.
Go ahead. We've got one question so far, but I'll get to her after your story.
Okay, my story is I declared that I wanted to work on my doctorate at UT, and I signed up for child development and early childhood education in the area of curriculum and instruction. And they said, you have to choose one more collateral area. So they had a whole long list of things that you could choose. So I looked down there and it said, organizational leadership. Heck, I've been leading organizations. I'll just check that. Little did I know that opened the door for me to learn all about administration and supervision and how to organize leaders and all those things. So again, it was a door that opened and not one that I was planning on, but thank God it happened.
Oh, I love that story.
That's
You
great.
never know where the next opportunity is going to lead you.
No, you don't.
So I see Rachel has raised her hand. So Rachel, if you want to just go ahead and unmute yourself, feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for organizing this today. My name is Rachel Crinklaw, and I am a 2016 UT Martin alumna who is on the equestrian team. So I'm a little bit younger, starting off in the first few years of my career, and have actually fallen into, in a way, higher education. I currently work for Harvard Kennedy School, so it's Harvard's graduate school of government, and I do alumni relations and some development fundraising style of things. So, but I've just started my master's program in education with a focus on higher education. So I just didn't know, Shirley, if maybe you could expand a little bit or tell some stories about your transitions between positions. So like I said, currently I'm in the development side of the university, but I think I'd like to get into more of a student-facing role, which is why I'm expanding and starting this master's degree. So maybe some anecdotes or some short stories about how you transition from being a dean to a vice chancellor to a president, and even earlier on in your career as well would be great.
Well, I became, as you heard, I enjoyed teaching teachers. And so I went into teacher education and was employed at the University of Alabama to be an assistant professor there. So I went up through the professorial ranks and became a department chair. So I'll tell you the first joke about Alabama. So I became a department chair as an assistant professor at the University of Alabama. Now, if you know anything about higher education, you know department chairs are not selected from the assistant professor ranks. They're selected from the senior professor ranks. But you know, the only reason they would give an assistant professor the title of department chair, because nobody else wanted it. So, you know, there are those times that you just take that position that it seems nobody else wants, and you do it to the best of your ability, and you make yourself that person they can't do without. But I left there and went to several other professorships, moved around from Oklahoma to George Mason to Florida, then to Kentucky. All of those moves were made. I married a man who also is a professor. And so some of the moves were made as a family. Early on in my career, he got the promotion and the big move, and I trailed along. Later on, I started getting the promotions, and he decided to retire, which is fine, which is fine. But it is, whatever door is open to you, Rachel, go through that door. Look at it, see if you like it. If it's not, slam that door behind you and go somewhere else. Look at the door that is open to you and do the very best job you can do at that point in time, and then other doors will open. Does that make sense? What else do you want to ask me, Rachel?
Thank you. I just, it's not that I dislike where I am right now. And I came from I did a year with AmeriCorps and was then working in a child advocacy agency. So I was in a little bit of a darker world of abuse and neglect during the opioid epidemic. So the change to higher ed was welcome, but now I'm just
refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, trying to figure out if I would like to be more on the student side versus the fundraising development. But it's great to hear different stories from, obviously I'm in a private university right now, so talking to people who work in public universities and the different style is really helpful. So thank you.
Well, Rachel, I tell you, you call Jacqueline, you call Jackie, and she'll tell you how to get in touch with me, and we can have a longer conversation.
Yes, we will do that. I've already messaged her and say we want to email. We've got another question from Erin Johnson. Erin's been, she's just welcomed a baby this year, and she's been one of our faithful volunteers over the past few years.
Yes. So. Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Hi, Dr. Raines. I am a 2008 graduate of UT Martin. I have lived just outside of Memphis my whole life. Both of my parents are Memphis State alums, and so I feel like I'm a bit in the presence of a celebrity today since I'm having the opportunity to hear you speak.
A skyhawk and a tiger.
I'm so glad to know I am not the only one. That is very refreshing to know. Absolutely. And my question for you is, I also work in the higher ed industry. I'm really curious to know if you have any specific advice for women who are interested in pursuing leadership opportunities. Does your advice look different or sound different, or do you have a special nugget for women who are interested in pursuing leadership?
Well, I'm starting a whole series called Say Yes to Leadership, which Keith mentioned a minute ago, and I used my first advice. And that is male or female, say yes to leadership. But it is harder for women to say yes to leadership. And when I told you about taking that job as department chair at Alabama, well, I waited 2 other places. I was a department chair, and I waited for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and say, you'd be good at that. So I want you to say yes to leadership and apply. Don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, you'd be good at this. You go forward and say yes to leadership, apply for positions that you want, and that should open doors for you. If it doesn't, then let's figure out what is lacking in your background or experience or the way you present yourself that you are not getting that opportunity. But say yes, be prepared, and apply.
Thank you.
That is great advice. Let's see. I have someone who's raised, and I'm not sure who it is. It's an iPad. So if that is you, go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question.
Hi, Jackie. It's Jana Fuqua.
Oh, hey, how are you?
And I got a new phone, so I'm a little messed up. But
You're good.
I've been participating, but I don't know how to do it. But hi, Dr. Raines. Hi, Dr.
Hi, Jana.
Great to see you, Dr. Raines. And I disagree with all y'all. Weakley County is the best, Dr. Carver, in the state. I too live in Shelby County, Dr. Raines, and we're not going to compare schools, but I'm sure when you left UT Martin and the University of Tennessee system, that it had to be a hard transition going to the University of Memphis. I know a lot of those good people over there. I would say Lynn Parks is the best person over there, in my opinion. I love Lynn, but just going from a trustee system to the other system, I know is some hard things. They have, their way of doing it. But and I don't want you to say who's the best or any of that stuff. But was it not hard going from one system to the other at all?
No, it wasn't. And of course, now every one of the TBR schools now has their own board.
Right.
So it's separate that they have their own board, but that didn't happen until after I had been there. But the reality is, Jana, that I lived so many different places and I worked under many different systems. Every state has a different way of organizing higher education. I taught briefly in a private school, so I can even talk about that. But because each state is so different, when I went to TBR, and frankly, I was grateful to have the position at TBR. They named 2 women on the same day. And I happened to be one of those women, and there had not been a woman president of a university until Sherry Hoppy and I were both named in the TBR system I'm talking about. So it was that was a great opportunity for us. So because every system was different, and because when I was at UT Martin, I wasn't an administrator or a faculty member, so I can't really talk about what it's like to work in the UT system.
All right.
I love UT, I love UT Martin. I have great colleagues in the UT system with the Board of Trustees. I know Randy and have served on Randy Boyd, and have served on some boards with him. But there are wonderful people in higher education throughout the state. And what we have to have is every university has to function really, really well. And in the functioning of that university, we will improve our state. So I don't want to sound like a political slogan, but I believe that with all my heart, that is what we have to have. So, but Jenna, thank you.
Well, we need, and I'm sorry to keep going, we need better education all the way around. We need
Absolutely, we do. We
uh,
must.
for Rachel in under, we elementary education, our education all through our state needs to be better. And Governor Lee, we're in a mess with the COVID and the schools in the state and virtual learning. I know Martin is doing virtual learning, but to me, face-to-face learning is better than a computer. And
Yes.
I'm old school, but
Well, no, it's not old school. It is what the research is telling us. Here in Oak Ridge, I'm very fortunate that we have a really good school system, and my grandchildren are doing well. One went virtually, a fourth grader, for a few weeks, and as soon as he could go back to class full time, he went to class. The granddaughter is doing a hybrid, half-time virtual and half-time in class. And then there are some people who are all virtual. I am most concerned about those children who do not have internet access and do not have the computer and the technology and someone to help them.
well, as a UT Martin alum and a Martin person, I grew up in Martin. We're awfully proud of you and all the things you've done, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jen. I'm proud to claim UT Martin as my home, too.
Shirley, Jana is my favorite pharmacist.
Oh, wonderful.
You can quote me on that, Jana.
Thank you, Dr. Carver. I can't say you're my favorite chancellor because Dr. Raines is on the thing here with us, but growing up in Martin, I'm awfully proud of UT Martin and all the things y'all have accomplished. And Dr. Raines got us off to a great start, a female, I'm awfully proud of that. And,
Yeah.
But I'm awfully proud of UT Martin. I love UT Martin, and I moved to the big city of Memphis, but I'm awfully proud of UT Martin, and I still try to support us whenever I can, and the pharmacy school too. So
Absolutely.
proud of that.
No, you make us all proud. You do. Jackie, I'm looking. Do we have any other hands raised?
Yes, we have Kane Reeves.
Great.
Hey, Dr. Raines.
Okay.
I am currently serving as County Extension Director for the University of Tennessee and Tennessee State University Cooperative Extension in Madison County. And I am a 2011 and 2015 graduate of UT Martin. So I'm a diehard Skyhawk as well. So I had a question about, of course, leadership, but being able to pick the right people on your team and also being able to lead them is an important thing. And I just wanted to get your feedback on how you handled that when you selected people and also keeping them engaged throughout their tenure with you.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. If Keith had asked me for more lessons, that was the next one. It's the team. It's choosing the right people to be on your team if you can make that choice. In some companies, you can't make that choice. In some civic groups, you can't make the choice. You have the people who are on the team, and that's it. But often, as the administrator, you get to choose your team. I always tried to have people who had already been at the institution because they had institutional knowledge, and then knew people and brought those people together. And I always felt that was a winning combination. Fortunately, I was always allowed to do that. In fact, but I do not agree with the advice that I sometimes read, that as the new administration, you fire everyone who is on the leadership team and you ask them to reapply for their job and to compete in a pool of people. I never liked that. So I never did that. I know some who did. They didn't last very long as university administrators either. So I believe that my 12-year tenure at the University of Memphis was due to having a very good team and working with them, listening to them. As I said recently in an interview, all good ideas do not come from on high. If you have a true leadership team, you listen to each other, you solve problems. But I would also say, ultimately, the chancellor or the president has to make the decision. So you have to take in the very best advice from your team. And then when you have to go contrary to their advice, you'll have to be able to explain it. I also spent a lot of time explaining the steps I would take and the decision we were making and why to both the internal community of the universities where I served and the external community, so that people understand what we're doing and why. But yes, the right team.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands up, so I'll do a last call for questions. Dr. Raines, I have learned so much during your talk. I love your phrase, just say yes. I think that is, and apply. Looking back, I think those two things have also served me well so far. So I'm looking forward to the next opportunity to say yes, whatever that might be.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Well, good. Oh, Lord. I don't see any other hands raised. Are there any final thoughts you might have for us? Or Dr. Carver, did you have any last questions?
I just want to really circle back and say, thank you. I think for me, the nugget I really picked up today is, in the middle of a crisis, really never losing focus on your values and what's your mission, what your values, what do we do? And in my case, it's about our students and it's about our faculty and equipping them to learn, equipping them with the resources they need to teach. And that was a really good reminder, but also think about the importance of every decision that you make. And thank you for that really good reminder for all of us during these kind of uncertain times, is to really stay focused and think about your decisions. And I really appreciate that. We're awful proud of you.
Well, thank you. I'm proud to be a graduate of what was then UT Martin branch, but now is UT Martin. Then I was a baby vol and I became a pacer and a skyhawk, but I'm glad to be a skyhawk.
Fantastic. Well, you got our colors on today. That's wonderful.
That's right. They happen to be Memphis colors, but today they're Skyhawk colors too. And I hope you'll invite me back when I can really. I've spoken at graduation. I've spoken at Zeta and some other alumni things years ago, but invite me back and I'll say yes.
Oh, even better.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's a great way to wrap up. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Once the link for this Zoom recording is finalized, it might take us a few days, but we'll get that back out to you all. And then this afternoon, we will send you the links to Dr. Raines' books. If you'd like to go and purchase those, I highly recommend them. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Raines, and we'll be following up with you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.